Vietnam's early history. First, we start with the French who colonized Vietnam and parts of Cambodia in 1885, which is later taken over by Japan. After World War II, the French come back to take Vietnam again because the U.S. has defeated Japan. Post-World War II, Ho Chi Minh had paraphrased the Declaration of Independence in his own independence speech after they were independent from France. The First Indochina War began in 1946 with China in the north and the British Allied forces in the south, with French influence and control also taking place in the south. After the Geneva Conference in 1954, the North and South Vietnam were separated on the 17th parallel because the South sided with France and North with China. Vietnam's relationship with democracy. Nguyen Dinh Diem became prime minister later in 1954 and the president of South Vietnam in 1955. The U.S. liked him because he was against communism, which was very important at the time with the Cold War going on. President Dwight Eisenhower wrote a letter to him on October 23, 1954, which stated how he wanted to help aid South Vietnam fight communism, but he wanted them to maintain a winning performance. The U.S. relationship. Because he was a corrupt politician, he was assassinated on November 2, 1963. Late in 1964 was the Gulf of Tonkin incident. Claims of 2 U.S. vessels being attacked by North Vietnamese vessels started conflict between the two countries. Before 1965, the U.S. had only sent supplies and advisors to Vietnam. The draft. More than 75% of men who fought in Vietnam volunteered. Of the 8.7 million men in the military during this time, only 1.8 million were drafted. How many soldiers? 2.7 million men actually fought in Vietnam, and only 25% of them were drafted. 70% of combat deaths were volunteers, with only 30% being drafted men. Dodging the draft. Many men who were drafted failed to register. Some 30,000 fled the country with Canadian immigration claims. Most of those 30,000 were included in a count of 210,000 total men. Catching the Dodgers. About all 210,000 men were charged with draft evasion, which involved steep fines and often prison time. And a fun fact, Muhammad Ali was also drafted, but he claimed he could not serve for religious reasons. But his charges were overturned by the Supreme Court, and he was acquitted because he was somewhat of a national treasure, not because of his religion.
You know, when I got back and when they dropped the draft, I think this world kind of took a backward walk. I think everybody should have a little experience under a drill sergeant or go someplace where there's a little action. Not, it ain't, nowadays the action ain't like it used to be. Nowadays you could just point a rifle at something and you're gonna hit the target.
Yeah.
Back then, we had these tracer bullets that lit up, and exactly knew where they're gonna land and to the general area where you figured it was coming.
Yeah.
I don't know, I was glad I did it.
Yeah.
After it's all said and done, I'm glad I was a part of it. I got drafted. I went to Fort Lewis, Washington, and did my basic training. And then after that, we got a couple weeks off, and then went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and did my AIT there for the howitzers and infantry.
Okay.
And that was quite an experience there. I met a lot of close friends through the service, but I know where they're at now, and we call every once in a while and talk and kind of say how lucky we are from the other guys that didn't make it out of there.
Right.
Nice little trip all the way to Fort Lewis. And when we got to Fort Lewis, we emptied out all our cologne and whatever. It was not going over there. So that night, we all got together and we all walked down the interstate down to the closest bar and had a few drinks and come back. The next day we got on the plane and away we went. We get to Vietnam and get off the plane, it's 115 degrees. And I got down to the bottom of the step off the plane and I said, this place is not for me. I'm a North Dakota dude and I'm going home. I was walking back up on the ladder and the lieutenant went, you're sticking around here, bud. I just got laughed and walked back. So we got on a deuce and a half and went to base camp, and we're in this deuce and a half, and you guys make sure that you stay under the canvas on the truck because we're going through a village and we will be stoned. And sure enough, we went through this little village and they were stoning us. And we were all behind the canvas and you could hear it hit the deuce and a half in the canvas and all that. And we get to base camp and get off and get checked in, and we got settled in, and then we went out for a patrol one day and we got in a helicopter. That would be our first day out there. And when we flew out there in the rice paddies, we were supposed to jump out of this helicopter. This one guy, he wasn't going to jump. Oh, I was right behind him and I said, we're going, Buster, we're not waiting to get shelled right up here.
Yeah.
You can hear all the shells and stuff going off all over the place, and I pulled him out, and he got down. He said he called me something else. Got picked up and went back to base camp, and that went on for about 3 weeks, and then we went to take a shower, and showers over there was a big old drum up in the air, and there was just a tank, and the sun kept the water hot, and that's where we were taking a shower. And one guy said, Jesus, Rodney, what's wrong with you? And I said, well, what do you mean, what's wrong with me? He said, take a look at you. And we're so used to being sand and crap and dirty anyway, and I washed out, I was like a dead person walking around. And I said, what? I don't know, I feel all right. So we went back to, got dressed, and we're going through a conference like we're doing here. People talk and see if they can. And I was walking through the bleachers there, and I got tripped. And I looked around, and he said, I think you got that coming. That was a guy from our basic training that tripped me. And I said, what are you doing here? And he said, well, same thing you're doing here, you idiot. I said, well, okay. And we got to have a few beers together, good old warm beer. And then next day I checked in at I was supposed to get mine. I told the sergeant the night before that I had to go see what's going on. And so I checked into the dispensary, and I was laying there, and the nurse said, just take a bunk, we'll get at you. And I was laying in a bunk and kind of taking a siesta, and somebody shook me, and there was this nurse said, God, I thought you were dead. I said, no, I'm fine. She said, well, you look dead. Well, I did. I just look like a dead person. And so I stuck there, and they kept doing everything. They were supposed to give me all these pills and stuff every day, and then they shipped me over to Japan. Over there for about 2 months, they were doing this and that, and I ended up with a kidney stone over there. I'm about ready to go in for operation for a kidney stone, and I passed it. And anyway, I went through an earthquake over there in Japan, and I was walking down through the corridors one time, and here this Leonard was. Leonard, what are you doing? He says, Rodney. And I said, yeah, that's me. He says, I said, what the hell are you doing in a wheelchair? Oh, we got run into a landmine, and you and I are the only ones left of the whole platoon. After you left, they ran into a landmine, and that blew up, and then I had a guy yell at me, Jensko, get your rear end over here, you got an appointment to make. And I said, I'll see you later. Wow, Well, I got back and I couldn't find him, so I don't know whatever happened to Leonard. Went to Walter Reed General Hospital for 3 months, and they finally found out I couldn't take malaria pills and all the crap that they were giving me over Vietnam and in Japan, and more or less called me down to the office one day, and he says, well, we got one thing here we want to run through you. And I said, well, what's that? Well, we can't ship you back over seas anymore because you can't take the medicine. We found that out through the testing at Walter Reed. And I said, well, what's the other option? Well, we'll keep you in the United States. I said, okay, whatever. You know. Or do you want to get out? I said, where do I sign? So that was 11 months and down a year over, you know, in the service. So then they just let me go. So Vietnamese came up to me one day and wanted to sell me some smoking dope. Well, I took that smoking dope and I just flew it in the air. Whew.